George the Dragon, from the village mascot to cosmic royalty, written by Jenne Saunders. George was no ordinary dragon. He was the heart and soul of a small, picturesque village nestled in a green valley. His scales shimmered with hues of emerald and gold, a sight that caused many to stop and stare in awe. Unlike the fearsome dragons of old tales, George was friendly and adored by all the villagers. Children loved to play with him, climbing onto his back for rides through the meadow. Adults appreciated his help with heavy lifting and repairs, tasks that were otherwise cumbersome. George had an affinity for community barbecues, where he would roast marshmallows with his fiery breath, delighting everyone. Despite his size, George was incredibly agile, especially when it came to his favorite game, football. His massive tail could send the ball soaring across the field, and his dexterity was unmatched. Every weekend, the villagers gathered for a game, and George was always the star player. Moreover, George had a unique ability that set him apart from any dragon in tales or history books. He could turn invisible. This came in handy during hide-and-seek games with the children, or when he wanted to sneak a few extra treats during BBQs. His invisibility added a layer of mystery and fun to his persona, making him the village's beloved mascot. George's days were filled with joy and laughter, a true testament to his harmonious relationship with the villagers. Every morning he would help the farmers in the fields, using his powerful wings to fan the crops and keep pests away. The farmers often joked that George was their very own scarecrow, only much more effective and charismatic. Afternoons were reserved for play and relaxation. George loved to swim in the village pond, his massive form creating gentle waves that the children rode with glee. His invisible trick was a favorite during these times, as he would disappear underwater, leaving the children guessing where he would pop up next. Evenings saw George participating in village chores. He had a knack for fixing things, whether it was a broken fence or a leaky roof. His claws, though massive, were delicate and precise, making him an excellent repairman. The villagers often marveled at his skills, wondering how a dragon could be so adept at tasks requiring such finesse. Nights were George's favorite time. The village would gather around a large bonfire, and George would curl up nearby, his scales reflecting the dancing flames. Stories were told, songs were sung, and George listened intently, his eyes gleaming with contentment. It was during these moments that he felt truly at home, surrounded by his human family. One sunny morning, as George was helping the blacksmith with some heavy lifting, a shimmering portal appeared in the village square. Out stepped a dragon, smaller and more delicate than George, with scales that glistened like sapphires. The villagers gasped in unison, unsure of what to make of this unexpected visitor. The dragon introduced herself as Belle, and as she spoke, her voice was melodic and soothing. She explained that she had traveled from a distant realm, drawn by tales of a dragon who had made a home among humans. The villagers, ever hospitable, welcomed her warmly, intrigued by her presence and the mystery she brought with her. Belle was a sight to behold. Her wings were adorned with intricate patterns, and her eyes sparkled with intelligence and curiosity. She moved gracefully, her every step exuding an aura of elegance and poise. The children were particularly enchanted by her, following her around and peppering her with questions. George, upon hearing of Belle's arrival, was both excited and anxious. He had never met another dragon before, and the prospect filled him with a mix of anticipation and nervousness. As he approached the village square, he caught sight of Belle and was immediately struck by her beauty and grace. Belle was not just a dragon, she possessed unique abilities that left the villagers in awe. One of her most fascinating talents was her ability to transform into a human. With a flash of light, Belle would shrink and morph, her scales blending into smooth skin, and her wings folding into a beautiful cloak. In her human form, Belle was equally captivating. She had long, flowing hair blonde with beautiful blue eyes. This transformation allowed her to interact with the villagers on a different level, and they quickly grew fond of her dual nature. Belle also had the power to heal. She could mend broken bones, cure illnesses, and even revive wilting plants with a mere touch. This gift endeared her to the villagers, who saw her as a guardian angel sent to protect and nurture their community. Her presence brought a sense of peace and well-being to the village. Another remarkable ability of Belle's was her telepathy. She could communicate with both humans and animals through thought alone, bridging the gap between different species. This talent was particularly useful in understanding the needs and desires of the village livestock, ensuring they were well cared for. The day of George and Belle's first meeting was filled with excitement and anticipation. Belle changed her appearance to dark hair when she met George. Also, George changed color to black from gold. As the villagers witnessed this, they couldn't understand what they were seeing. From where George and Belle came from, they were known to change their appearance when they wanted a new look. This was normal on their planet, but for humans very confusing. George, with his usual enthusiasm, approached Belle with a friendly roar, causing her to smile warmly. There was an instant connection between them, a sense of familiarity that neither could quite explain. They spent hours talking, sharing stories of their lives and experiences. George was fascinated by Belle's tales of her realm, a place filled with dragons of all shapes and sizes, each with unique abilities. Belle, in turn, was captivated by George's life among humans and the deep bond he had formed with them. As they conversed, Belle couldn't help but notice a peculiar mark on George's right claw. It was a symbol she had seen before, one that held great significance in her realm. Her curiosity piqued. She gently inquired about its origin, but George had no memory of how he had acquired it. Their meeting was not just a sharing of stories, but the beginning of a deep and meaningful bond. They found comfort and companionship in each other, realizing that despite their differences, they were kindred spirits. The villagers watched in awe as the two dragons interacted, sensing that something extraordinary was unfolding. As days turned into weeks, George and Belle grew closer. They spent their mornings helping the villagers, afternoons playing with the children, and evenings sharing stories under the stars. Their bond deepened with each passing day, built on mutual respect and admiration. One day, Belle suggested exploring the nearby forest, a place she had heard about from the villagers. George agreed, and together they ventured into the lush greenery. The forest was a magical place, filled with ancient trees, sparkling streams, and hidden creatures. It was here that they felt most at home, surrounded by the beauty of nature. During one of their explorations, Belle taught George how to harness his invisibility more effectively. She showed him how to blend seamlessly with his surroundings, becoming one with nature. George was a quick learner, and soon he was able to move through the forest undetected, a skill that delighted him immensely. Their adventures in the forest were not just about fun and games. They also discovered hidden caves and ancient relics, remnants of a time long past. Each discovery brought them closer, as they pieced together the history of their world and their place in it. Their bond grew stronger with each shared experience, solidifying their friendship and partnership. One evening, as George and Belle sat by the village bonfire, Belle decided it was time to delve deeper into the mystery of George's mark. She had a hunch that it was more than just a random symbol, and that it held the key to George's true identity. With a mixture of excitement and trepidation, she began her inquiry. Belle gently took George's claw in her hand and examined the mark closely. She then recited an ancient incantation, one that was meant to reveal hidden truths. As she spoke the final words, the mark began to glow, emitting a soft, golden light. The villagers gathered around the bonfire watched in stunned silence. To George's amazement, images began to form in his mind. He saw flashes of a distant land, a realm filled with dragons, each more magnificent than the last. He saw a grand palace perched atop a mountain and a throne made of shimmering crystals. And then he saw himself, not as George the village dragon, but as a prince, adorned with a crown and royal regalia. The revelation was overwhelming. George felt a surge of emotions, ranging from disbelief to awe. He had always known he was different, but he had never imagined that he was royalty. Belle, who had been watching him closely, saw the realization dawn in his eyes and smiled softly. She knew that their journey was just beginning. With the revelation of George's true identity, Belle felt it was time to share her own story. She explained that she was a guardian sent from their home planet, tasked with finding the lost prince who had been sent to Earth for his protection. The mark on George's claw was a royal insignia, a sign that he was the rightful heir to the throne. George listened intently, absorbing every word. It all made sense now, the abilities, the mark, the sense of belonging he had always felt with Belle. He realized that his life in the village was a part of a larger destiny, one that he was now ready to embrace. The villagers, though saddened by the thought of losing their beloved dragon, understood the importance of his mission. Belle assured George that their home planet, Draconis, was a place of great beauty and wonder. It was a realm where dragons lived in harmony, ruled by a just and benevolent monarchy. George's parents, the king and queen, had sent him to Earth to protect him from a looming threat, hoping that one day he would return to reclaim his throne. The decision was not an easy one. George loved the village and its people, but he also felt a strong pull towards his true heritage. He knew that he had a responsibility to his people on Draconis, a duty that he could no longer ignore. With Belle by his side, he felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The news of George's true identity spread quickly through the village, and preparations for his departure began in earnest. The villagers, though heartbroken at the thought of losing their beloved dragon, were determined to give him a proper send-off. They organized a grand feast, filled with laughter, music, and memories. George spent his remaining days helping the villagers with their tasks, cherishing every moment he had with them. He played football with the children, swam in the pond, and fixed anything that needed repair. Each activity was a bittersweet reminder of the life he was about to leave behind. Belle, too, was busy making preparations. She used her telepathy to communicate with their home planet, arranging for their safe passage back. She also spent time getting to know the villagers, understanding the bond they shared with George. It was clear to her that George's time on Earth had shaped him into the kind and compassionate dragon he was today. The day of departure arrived all too soon. The village square was filled with people, each one eager to bid farewell to their friend and protector. George, with Belle by his side, stood in the center, his heart heavy with emotion. As he looked around at the faces of those he had come to love, he felt a deep sense of gratitude and sorrow. The farewell ceremony was a poignant affair, filled with tears, laughter, and heartfelt goodbyes. The villagers had prepared gifts for George, tokens of their love and appreciation. The children presented him with a handmade football, while the farmers gave him a basket of fresh produce. The blacksmith crafted a beautiful necklace, featuring a pendant shaped like a dragon. George accepted each gift with gratitude, his heart swelling with emotion. He knew that he would carry the memories of this village with him, no matter where his journey took him. The villagers, in turn, expressed their love and admiration for George, recounting stories of his kindness and bravery. Belle, watching the emotional farewells, felt a deep sense of respect for the villagers. They had welcomed her with open arms and had shown her the true meaning of community. She knew that George's time on Earth had been a blessing, both for him and for the villagers who had come to love him. As the ceremony drew to a close, the shimmering portal that Belle had arrived through reappeared in the village square. It was time for George and Belle to embark on their journey back to Draconis. With a final wave to the villagers, George stepped through the portal, his heart filled with a mix of sadness and excitement. As George and Belle stepped through the portal, they found themselves enveloped in a swirl of light and color. The transition was smooth and seamless, and before they knew it, they were standing at the gates of the Grand Palace on Draconis. The sight was breathtaking, a magnificent structure that seemed to glow with an inner light. Awaiting them at the gates were George's parents, the king and queen, their faces lit up with joy and relief as they embraced their long-lost son. It was a moment of profound reunion filled with tears and laughter. George felt a sense of belonging that he had never experienced before, a connection to his heritage and his true identity. Belle stood by, her heart full of happiness for George. She knew that he was where he belonged, surrounded by his family and his people. However, she also understood the bond he had formed with the villagers on Earth. She made a promise to herself and to George that they would return to visit the village, ensuring that their connection to Earth remained strong. George, too, made a promise. He vowed to the villagers that he would come back to visit, bringing with him stories of his adventures and the wonders of Draconis. He knew that his heart would always hold a special place for the village and its people, a place where he had found love, friendship, and a sense of belonging. Life on Draconis was both exciting and challenging for George. He had a lot to learn about his royal duties and the responsibilities that came with being a prince. With Belle's help, he quickly adapted to his new role, embracing the customs and traditions of his people. He found joy in reconnecting with his roots and discovering the rich history of his lineage. The palace was a marvel of architecture, filled with treasures and artifacts from times long past. George spent hours exploring its many halls and chambers, each one holding a piece of his heritage. He also took the time to meet the other dragons of Draconis, learning about their unique abilities and forming new friendships. George's parents were a source of great wisdom and support. They guided him through his royal duties, helping him understand the importance of leadership and compassion. They also shared stories of his childhood, filling in the gaps of his memory and helping him feel more connected to his past. Despite his busy schedule, George never forgot his promise to the villagers. He frequently communicated with them through Belle's telepathy, sharing updates on his life and listening to their news. The bond between George and the village remained strong, a testament to the love and friendship they had shared. Back in the village, life continued, but the absence of George was deeply felt. The villagers missed his presence, his laughter, and his unwavering support. The children in particular felt the loss keenly, often reminiscing about their adventures with George. However, they took solace in the knowledge that he was fulfilling his destiny and that they would see him again. The villagers held on to the gifts and memories that George had left behind, cherishing them as reminders of their beloved dragon. The handmade football became a symbol of hope and unity, a reminder of the bond they shared with George. The basket of produce and the dragon-shaped pendant were displayed proudly, tokens of their connection to a world beyond their own. The blacksmith, inspired by George's departure, decided to create a statue in his honor. It was a magnificent piece of art, capturing George in all his glory, with his wings spread wide and a look of determination in his eyes. The statue was placed in the village square, a lasting tribute to their friend and hero. As promised, George and Belle returned to visit the village. Their arrival was met with joy and celebration, a testament to the enduring bond between the dragons and the villagers. George shared tales of his adventures on Draconis, filling the villagers with wonder and excitement. The reunion was a beautiful reminder that love and friendship transcend boundaries, uniting hearts across worlds. Lots of love. Jenne Saunders.